G'day mates, Nate the Aussie here. How you all doing? So this is a sort of a final response and sort of conclusion to the interaction that I've had with Antony Cummins on YouTube and also on email as well. This is sort of a way to clear the air, I suppose, if that makes sense. This is something that Antony and myself agreed that we would both go out and explain exactly where we're coming from, where we agree, why we disagree, why, and basically what to do from then on. For clarity and ease of reference, this video will be divided into 3 sections. Firstly, I will address the areas in which I admit potential fault and also fault in the approach that I used in my initial video response to Antony's video on Itto Ryodan. And of course, any video that I mention in this will be in the description below. Second, I will mention the points on which I agree with Antony and why, as well as the various points that I disagree with Antony and why. Lastly, I'll conclude by explaining, based on the interactions through email that I've had with Antony, where we go from here and emphasizing the importance of academic and social integrity in everything we do and encourage from our viewers. Before I begin the first section of this video, I want to stress something that is and should be crucial for all interactions like these. I address the argument and, if necessary, the interactions I have had with the person, not the person themselves. Specifically, my goal is not to slander, call anyone names, etc. And basically, I don't want to create any drama from stuff like this. Therefore, I wholeheartedly reject all claims made, including the initial claim made by Antony in his response video, that I dislike him as a person. I never said that, and I do not believe that. I disagree with his approach, not who he is as a person. Big difference. While not confirming this in words specifically, Antony has seemed to stop making that claim about me and that my video was personal and a personal attack on him. And while he hasn't said that word for word necessarily, he stopped making that claim about me. And this I really do appreciate, which I interpret as him acknowledging that my initial video was not a personal attack, it was purely made out of academic interest. And this I do appreciate. Just for a word of clarification, whenever I am showing any quotes from any emails that I've had with Antony, I'm only showing the responses that I made because I don't have Antony's permission specifically to show the emails that he sent or the video responses that he sent to me privately by email. So if you wish to share those, obviously that's his right to, but I'm only going to show the email responses that I wrote because just for privacy's sake. The first reason why I say potential fault specifically here is mostly due to the fact that the fault itself is based on a view of my initial response video on its own without any context. Specifically, the video I made was purely focused on the video to which it was responding, nothing else. Antony explained to me that the video came off as very negative and it offered very little positive, constructive feedback on his approach as compared to the one that I take. While the video I made was not meant to be an over-encompassing sort of comparison video comparing our approaches and therefore was not really comparing points, not really meant to, I can see how it would look quite negative in that regard. And I wish to clarify that this was not at all my intention. One of Antony's viewers made a point that I should have contacted Antony regarding my response. And this is a very fair critique, in my opinion, and I agree with it. You technically do not have to contact someone if you're making a response video to them, and technically they will also get a notification if you tag them in your video, so technically they're notified, but in this situation it should not really be a matter of have to, it should be a matter of what approach has the most integrity. And so I completely agree with this comment. And this is something that I wish to publicly apologize for. I should have gone about that in a more professional way. This is something I will take on board in future for sure. As this video, unlike my initial response to his video on Itto Ryodan, is meant to include an over-encompassing comparison of Antony and my preferred approaches, I'll include the points on which we agree and disagree. Specifically, here are the points where I agree with Antony based on our email interactions that we've already had, and my email response that I have copied and pasted, I've just put here on screen for you for transparency. 1. Japanese swordsmanship has changed over time from the 16th to 19th centuries due to various socio-cultural and martial reasons. As a result, using koryu as a historical source to look at the late 16th century is problematic and can very much muddy the waters. 2. We need quality translations of classical Japanese texts from the era and after if we are to begin to understand how Japanese historical martial arts changed and to even hope to begin to interpret historical Japanese martial arts before the hundreds of years worth of change that has led to koryu today. And final point of agreement, point 3, the weapon skills of historical Japanese martial arts from before the Edo period had an emphasis on being practical for combat, whether in war or in a duel. As mentioned earlier, the points above are points where I agree with Antony. Now, here are the points on which I disagree with him. Just to clarify, these areas of disagreement are based on a combination of difference in methodology approaches that I've noticed, and also his emailed or public video responses or critiques on what I said. 1. Modern Japanese people who may not have qualifications in translating classical Japanese, but are instead trained in koryu, are a valid source when it comes to studying old martial texts from the mid to late 16th century and early 17th century. The reason why I disagree with this is because, in my opinion, this muddies the waters of understanding even more than necessary and is contradicted by points 1 and 2 of our agreed points above that I've already mentioned. Point number 2. Modern martial artists worry about being safe while pulling off a technique, whereas Sengoku era and early Edo era martial artists didn't have this concern. This is a point he made in his video, just to clarify, his response video to me. In my opinion, there's very little point to applying a technique if it is so impractical it likely gets you killed in the process of applying it. Yagyu Munenori, for example, specifically states in his text that the first priority is not to be hit by the opponent. Point 3. I'm claiming you only used 2 translations. In my video, I made a polite guess, and in fact I stated that in my video. Not just by speaking, but specifically with a caption on screen. 4. I intentionally chose your after work video to make you look bad. This was a critique that he made to me by email. That was the only video of Itto Ryodan that I had seen him in specifically, and I was unaware of how much a role that he played in the video with the gentleman from Spain specifically. Keep in mind that my second video was filmed in between marking drafts for school and putting my toddler to sleep. So there is that. 5. You can go out there and spar anyone with steel without training beforehand. Now, yes, from what I've seen with you, and as you have said, no one has had an accident, thankfully. However, in my opinion, a poor decision is, in general, not ending badly doesn't change the fact that the decision was still a poor decision to begin with. So, as a modern and historical martial artist who also instructs, I do still stand by the statements I made in my first video regarding safety that I made in response to Antony specifically. No personal disrespect to you, simply a disagreement in our practices. Point 6. I am saying there is only one way to do the technique, this Itto Ryodan, at a specific fixed range. I never said this. Instead, I gave an example of an unsound way to do it. I then have a note in brackets after here, just explaining to Antony that I'm going to release my own video interpretation of Itto Ryodan and explaining why I came to that conclusion. That video is also in the description below. Moving on though, in quote, I am not trying to do the whole my martial arts is better, simply stating what I did and how I did it. 7. And the final point of disagreement, you can do whatever you want so long as it is justified by the text. Now, in my opinion, the interpretation also needs to be practically applicable and refined through sparring before it can be deemed a martially valid interpretation. Specifically, if it's going to be applied and applicable against someone who is a resisting opponent, then it needs to be brought through that laboratory of testing, if you will. If it doesn't work against a resisting opponent, no matter how many times you try, it's probably not a martially valid interpretation of that text. In short, from my own research and training background, for an interpretation of a historical martial arts technique to hold water, it needs to 1. Be adaptable in various circumstances and ranges, 2. Not lead to you sacrificing yourself to pull it off, 3. Work against a non-compliant opponent, and 4. Be refined through sparring or pressure testing, preferably with steel and protective kit if possible. This is how an interpretation is martially sound. If it does not tick these boxes, then it cannot be defined, in my opinion, as an effective interpretation. If that is, we are assuming the texts we are reading speak of practically applicable techniques. If my techniques are proved to be wrong in terms of translations by qualified individuals and also prove to not work in sparring against a non-compliant opponent, then I of course will backtrack and look at refining my own practice, as I already have done multiple times over the years. So basically, where this is running down to is basically a disagreement on methodology, research approach, and application of historical martial arts research. That's what it boils down to. Now, this isn't me trying to slander Antony. I'm not trying to say any kind of personal insults towards him. That is not my goal. Simply drawing attention to areas where we agree, areas where we disagree, and why I hold the opinions that I hold. So, now that the points on which we agree and disagree have been clarified, the question is, well, where to from here? In my opinion, there are two options. Option A, we continue to make video disagreements about each other and keep feeding the idea of the fire of drama for views, etc. Or B, acknowledge our shared passion for Japanese history and historical martial arts and politely agree to disagree and basically encourage our viewers to do the same in all of their interactions. Based on the emails that I've had with Antony, I believe that we have both chosen option B, which, in my opinion, is a much better way to move forward. The importance is not whether we agree on everything, right? Because you're never going to find someone you agree with 100%. But rather, what's more important is the approach that we take in what we do, and also what we encourage in all those who view our content. So, to all of you watching, whether you're a subscriber of mine, or Antony, or neither, you have the option of either looking at both of our videos and approaches, or on its own or in combination with that, do your own research as well to develop your own understanding and decision about where you stand. Critical thinking and also interacting with all others with integrity, whether or not you agree, is so important for these kinds of discussions. And it is an approach both Antony and I agreed to encourage in our own audiences, as we have discussed by email. This is where we are, first and foremost, and wish to end on a positive note. I hope this video has helped to clarify the discussion for everyone, as well as further contribute to the passion of studying Japanese history and historical martial arts. It is such an interesting topic with so much nuance and content to it that it really changes the way we view Japanese martial arts, as well as the famous samurai and ashigaru. Antony, I wish you all the best with your research, all of the hard renovations that you're doing at your place, as well as best wishes as well for you and your missus with the little one that you're going to be welcoming in the world very soon, which is most exciting. My wife and I will also be welcoming our second one at the end of May, so you and I can both be brain dead and super dead tired around the same time in the same year. As for all of you mates watching, I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.